Hello students, and welcome to your video all about systems and the future of technology. Be sure you have your note page out and open. Let's begin. We're going to first start by talking about what is a system. Well, a system is an orderly way of achieving goals. And you interact with systems all the time. For example, you and I, we both have a system for how we get ready for school in the morning. I, for example, start by waking up and going to brush my teeth and take a shower. Then I go downstairs and feed the dogs. And then I eat breakfast. Then I pack my lunch for school. And then I drive to work. So I'm at Pacetti Bay. You might have a similar system for getting ready for school. Or another system would be your furnace system or air conditioning system at your house. You have a system for keeping your house at a certain temperature. We're actually going to use that example later on in our notes. So all technological systems have an input, processes, an output, and feedback. Let's talk a little bit more about each of these things. So you'll notice on your note page that you have a space for all four of these parts of the system, including troubleshooting as well. You're going to want to write down the definition and an example for each of these parts of the system. And then you'll see a picture of a system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Let's start with input. An input is pretty simple. It is something you put into a system. So anything that's going into your system is an input. So for example, if I wanted to keep my house at 67 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, my input would be setting the temperature. So my example here would be setting the temperature at 67 degrees Fahrenheit, because that is what I'm putting into the system. That is what I want from the system. The next part is the process of the system. The process of the system is the part of the system where something is done. You can think of it as the action of the system. So for example, we're going to take a look at that picture of the heating system. If we were having our furnace set at 67 degrees Fahrenheit, then the process would include all 7 of the resources of technology. So our example here is a combination of the 7 resources of technology. And if you take a look at that picture, you can see that people would be like your homeowner, the person who's commanding what the furnace should do. Our tools and machines would be the furnace itself. The information is how to control that information. How do we control the temperature? The materials would include the pipes that go throughout the house. The energy is the heat. Our capital, or the money, is us purchasing the fuel to run the heating. Then our time would include how long it takes for our house to heat up or cool down. So just remember that the processes are the action steps, or the actions of completing the system. Let's move on to output. The output is the results of the system's processes, and it is the desired product or result. So back to our original example, our output would be getting to school, specifically getting to school on time. That would be an output, or the result that we would want. In our example with the furnace, our output is the room reaching 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's look at feedback. Feedback is information about the output of a system. Also monitors how the system is working. So going back to our furnace example, we would use the thermostat in your house as our feedback. It would be the thing that keeps track of if our house is warmer than 67 degrees Fahrenheit or cooler than 67 degrees Fahrenheit. It gives us information about the system. Our last part here is troubleshooting. This is the process of finding out why the system is not working. So, for example, why isn't the furnace heating properly? So anytime a system isn't working, troubleshooting will occur. Just like when we were working on our mag, you guys were able to test out your maglevs several times, and sometimes they would levitate, sometimes they wouldn't. That was troubleshooting, figuring out what was going wrong. So if your house isn't heating to 67 degrees Fahrenheit, then you'd want to try and figure out what's going on, what part of this process is not working. So heating a house is a pretty complex system. Complex systems are made of smaller systems called subsystems. So a furnace is pretty complex. For example, so are computers. Computers, which are systems, is made up of monitors, keyboards, CPUs, the mouse, keyboard, etc. Those would all be subsystems. So you might have a system that is huge, like the furnace heating a house, or a computer. And those things can be broken up into subsystems. And even those subsystems can be broken up into subsystems. And each little subsystem has its own input and output and process and feedback. That's all working to make sure that we get a successful outcome. So with our systems, we have impacts. Impacts are the power of an event or an idea. They could be positive or negative. And there's always a risk or a benefit when it comes to when we're talking about the impact of a system. There's always risks or benefits. Risks are dangers or hazards, or a benefit would be a result that is helpful. Let's spend this last little part of our notes talking about the future of technology. New developments in technology will be reflected in new products. Competition will force businesses to improve their products, which will introduce new technologies. So this is really important to think about. We don't know for sure what's going to happen with tools of technology in the future, or where computers and certain technological devices are going to go. But we do know that with competition being part of our business practice, that's going to produce the newest and greatest technology. Think about our cell phones. If we only had one cell phone company producing one type of phone, then there wouldn't be much motivation to change that cell phone. But because there's competition out there and there's new needs and wants from people, that's making the availability of new technologies even better. For these notes, I want you to have 2 questions written in the questions column. Also, don't forget to fill out your summary down at the bottom. See you in class. We're going to first by if I wanted to, for example, just remember that the process of my tongue is green from eating those chips.